Inclusion is not tolerance, it is unquestioned acceptance, famously said by Joe W. So, together, we are going to dig on the process of inclusion and its transition program. So, good day. The reporter for this chapter is very yours truly, Kimberly Madrona. So, before everything, let's define first what is this inclusive education. So, inclusive education is a learning environment where children with and without disabilities are taught together as equals. So, inclusive education is recognized by teachers, families, and policymakers to be a more beneficial way of ensuring that children with and without disabilities achieve their full educational potential. So, inclusive education values diversity and the unique contributions each student brings to the classroom. And here is the vision of this program. So, the state, community, and the family hold a common vision for the Filipino child with special needs. By the 21st century, it is envisioned that he or she could be adequately provided with basic education. So, this education should fully realize his or her own potentials for development and productivity, as well as being capable of self-expression of his and her rights in the society. More importantly, he or she is God-loving and proud of being a Filipino. In its effort to pursue this vision, the Department of Education has adopted the policy of inclusive education, which provides that all children and youth with special needs must receive an appropriate education and everything within the system, and they should get education along with other children regardless of human differences. So this is signed by Yolanda S. Quijano. So on the next slide shows a survey of the number of people living in the country, which were divided into four aspects. Adults, children, and youth are of the same percentage. There are gifted and talented, and also a count of children with disabilities. And currently, only 2% of disabled children in the Philippines are able to access educational opportunities. So imagine, over a certain percentage, only 2% of these children are able to go to school. And why is that? So there are several barriers to inclusive education. We have physical barriers, curriculum, the socio-economic factors, funding, the language and communication, and the greatest of them all is the society's attitude. So negative attitudes towards differences that results in discrimination. And to abolish this barrier, our inclusive education has its guiding principles, which are the following. So first, diversity enriches and strengthens all community. So this program also depicts our warm acceptance of diversity. Second, all learners, different learning styles and achievements are equally valued, respected, and celebrated by society. So every learners are equal. Third, all learners are enabled to fulfill their potential by taking into account individual requirements and needs. So every learner are given equal opportunities. And fourth, support is guaranteed and fully resourced across the whole learning experience. So along the duration of the child's school participation, support is being guaranteed. The fifth one is all learners need friendship and support from people of their own age, so children are able to socialize. And the next, all children and young people are educated together as equals in their local communities. So every children receive receive the same attention, opportunity, and value. And inclusive education is incompatible with segregated provision, both within and outside mainstream education. So that's the guiding principles of this program. And next is we are gonna talk about the Philippine models of inclusion. So what are these? So first we have self-instruction. Why? It is because children are learning through what? They are learning through themselves. Yes. And self-monitoring. So the members of the family and other support system are having evaluation and monitoring on their child. So they will be assessed. And next is self-reinforcement. So they really need this. They must be motivated. They must be reinforced to strive in spite of their situation, in spite of their disability, because their motivation will be their driving force to participate in the program. And the next one is self-determination. So we must develop among our learners self-determination. So they must be given motivation to grow, determination to fight for what they are experiencing. And next, what is the process of inclusion? So inclusion is a process. Inclusion is concerned with identification and removal of barriers. Consequently, it involves collecting, collating, and evaluating information from a wide variety of sources in order to plan for improvements in policy and practice. So this transition program is centered on the removal of barriers after identifying them. And why is it important to remove these barriers? Is because this hinders the program's objective to be made into action. And so for the next, what is a transition program? So a transition program is designed to teach independent living skills, including vocational skills, to students receiving special education services ages 18 to 22. As they make progress, students fine-tune their work abilities, determine job preferences, and learn to work with growing independence. So this transition program opened doors for every child or person with disabilities because they would be taught skills that will help them be prepared later in life. Without this, a lasting impact would remain because it will make it much more difficult for people with disabilities to access employment opportunities and to live independently and achieve their full potential. So that is a transition program. And what is its main purpose? So we're gonna find out on the next slide. So transition program aims to help special learners become functional. So let me emphasize this. Functional ang maging kapaki-pakinabang kahit may kapansanan. And also to give them something to be proud of themselves and let them embrace their true value and worth. And how does the Department of Education sustain its special and inclusive education programs? So, the DepEd sustain its special and inclusive programs by providing SPED programs. So this program provides a holistic approach in catering to the needs of learners with various exceptionalities. So the SPED programs also ensures that learners with exceptionalities will have access to quality education by giving them their individual and unique learning needs. So that is the most important role of the DepEd, to provide quality education for all. And next is the functions of SPED Center as resource center for inclusion. So, unsa may role sa SPED centers? So, first is they are in charge in conducting continuous assessment for children with special needs. They provide in-service training to school personnel on why and how on creating inclusive school as well as other educational trends. They produce appropriate teaching materials and they support children with special needs in regular classrooms. So that are the things that SPED centers do to ensure the success of inclusive education. And next is the provision of support services. So we are going to identify who are these people involved in the program. So first are the professionals and specialists. Yes, they are mostly important because they are the one who knows how to handle different people with different peculiarity. And of course, the parents, because they are the main support system of our learners. And the peer or body teaching. So, when our learners are exposed to the classroom, they will meet people that will help them throughout the program. Next is how do we alter our curriculum? So, in altering our curriculum, we have different strategies. First is the vocational training emphasis. So, our curriculum will now give attention in teaching vocational skills and career education curricula. So, giving the guarantee to be employed in companies later in their lives. And next, life skills curricula that incorporate curriculum-based learning experience, which will provide learning experience for them to become equipped with necessary skills. And now, let me show you the necessary tools for inclusion. So we have multi-age classrooms, curriculum mapping, portfolio assessment, multi-level instruction, team teaching, and peer education. And lastly, here are the involved units and their functions. So first, we have the Bureau of Elementary Education. So, the Bureau of Elementary Education provides leadership and guidance over SPED programs. So, this unit is centered on guiding SPED programs. Second, the Special Education Division. So, they are in charge in the policy formulation, standard setting, modeling, research development, and overall leadership and management. So, they are in charge in the policy making kaya sila man mismo ang in charge sa centers for the learners. Next, the division, implementation and supervision of schools with special education programs, and monitoring and evaluation. So just like the regular schools nato experience, division always do the monitoring and evaluation. And lastly, the schools. So schools are the place for inclusive education as to why this unit is in charge in administering special education classes. So they organize and administer special education classes and implement curriculum in special education and also evaluate learning outcomes and programs. And that ends our discussion for the process of inclusion and its transition program. So thank you, and for your queries, just drop it in our group chat.